the rain before the ice and the snow, and it's a beautiful moving day as we are getting ready to pack up my oldest today in this yucky weather. Hopefully it will be done with the rain and all that junk by the time we are loading up the trailer this afternoon, as we will be taking off for Colorado tomorrow morning to move him out to begin his journey as interim youth pastor at a church in Rye, Colorado. So over the next 6 to 7 months, or whatever God has planned, if you'll be in prayer with us for him and what God has planned for him and that church out there, I would appreciate that. So we're excited and yet a little overwhelmed as parents as we move a child across the United States. He's been out of the home for a year, but still, it's a little different when you're 30 minutes away in Pella to across the United States in Colorado. So excited, but yet nervous for him. But I'm excited to be here this morning, and I know Christmas is always very exciting and yet overwhelming for a lot of people in a lot of ways. For us, there's always people that are missing at our table that have gone before us, but yet there's lots of new life that come to the table too. When we are in our home now, we have about 4 generations, as my second oldest has Corinth, our little grandbaby, and then in March we'll be adding Romelia to the family as well. So we have a few generations, and then as we go south to Missouri to John's family, his brother has a little baby Mary, and then we have Corinth there too. So there's some little feet pattering around that are 1, and then his dad is in his 90s. So we have a big span of age gaps there, and it's so fun to see all of that come together to celebrate the holidays and the birth of Jesus. And then Christmas is over, and then we kind of have the day after Christmas and now the weekend, and sometimes you sit and reflect and you're just like, what now? Especially Christmas fell on Thursday this week or this year, and so Friday, sometimes people have the let me go shopping and spend some of the money I got or return some of the gifts that don't fit. And then Saturday came and kind of do I take the Christmas stuff down? If you're like me, you're like, no way, it's going to stay up for a little longer. I worked way too hard to put up all that stuff, and I really like the Christmas trees and for it to stay up a little bit longer. And so, and it's kind of my ambient lighting this time of year too, so that I have some nice lighting in the house. And so we're kind of in this in between. Jesus has been born. The new year's not here yet, so we're not ready to celebrate. And if you're like me, the new year happens around 9 p.m. My kids are starting to get smart now that they're 9 and 10, and they realize that's not midnight, but the ball drops a little earlier somewhere else in the world, so we try to watch that on YouTube so that they think that it's dropped already. But we're not ready to celebrate the new year yet. We're kind of in this in between. So I'm glad you're here today. I'm glad for those that are online as well, as I know the weather's going to get a little sticky here later today, and it's a little windy. It might blow you around a little bit, but I believe that God has something timely for each of you. Most of us have had an experience in our life driving somewhere familiar. We're confident of where we're going, yet we still have the GPS. I've been driving to this church now for quite some time, and I still turn on the GPS, just in case. Even though I know I'm exiting 86th Street, and I know how far down I need to turn, I still turn on the GPS. But have you ever had the GPS on to somewhere you're going, and all of a sudden it says rerouting? And you're like, I didn't miss my turn. I didn't do anything wrong. And my destination didn't change. I know where I'm going. But the system Something it sees I can't see. An accident ahead, a closed road, maybe a delay. And granted, yes, now the new systems tell you something's on the road ahead or the traffic or whatever, because it did that for us this morning. There's an object on the road ahead. Is it still there? Which I find interesting if you're the only one in the car, that you're now supposed to be touching buttons on your screen to say, yes, it's there or not. But so careful while you're driving. Don't do that. But you have this moment of choice. Am I going to trust the reroute, or do I insist on my original plan and the way I know how to get there? This morning, we're going to talk about those who feel like life is maybe rerouting them today. Not because you failed, not because you were disobedient, and not because God is leading you in a different direction, even though the path doesn't make sense. If you've ever found yourself between what was and what will be, this message is going to be for you. So that probably means it's for you, because it's been for me many times in my life. So Exodus chapter 13, verse 17 and 18, and then we'll jump ahead to 21 and 22, says, "When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through Philistine country, though that was shorter. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud, and by night, a pillar of fire." God sometimes leads us the long way around. The Bible's pretty clear. There was a shorter road, but God intentionally didn't take it. Why? Because God knew what was ahead. And he knew what his people were not yet ready to face. Shorter doesn't always mean safer. We've always heard the saying, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. But that doesn't always mean that that's safer. Faster doesn't always mean faithful. Sometimes the long way isn't always the punishment. It's the preparation. God's detour is not delays. They're leading you in discipleship. There's a method to God's madness. There's a reason he's leading you on the path that you're on. Some of you are probably frustrated because you thought you'd be further along by now. And I understand that. I've been in that season of waiting and preparation. I've talked for a few weeks now of being in a season of trying to figure out what I'm doing and a decision I needed to make and where we would be. And we finally made that decision, but it took many more weeks than we thought it would be for God to make that path clear. And there's been much frustration in that season. But God may be forming something in you that could not be rushed. Or maybe he was forming something in someone else that you needed to be there for. God's presence doesn't eliminate uncertainty. And so there's sometimes a lot of uncertainty in the waiting and in that in between. The pillar of cloud that is talked about in Exodus and the fire were visible to God's people. Undeniable proof of God's presence and that God was with them. He never left them. And yet, they still didn't know where they would sleep, how long the journey might take, or what tomorrow would bring. They only knew that they were to follow the pillar. They were to follow the cloud day by day on the journey, on that discipleship, on that faithfulness. God didn't remove the unknown. He just inserted himself into the situation. He was just there. He was just present in the in-between. Faith is not knowing where you're going. It's knowing who is going with you. Who is on the journey with you? Church, God is still leading you. God is still leading the church. Even when we feel unsure and we're not sure what the next step is, what the next choice is, God gives us just enough light for the next step. God didn't give Israel the whole map. He didn't tell them everywhere they were going to go. Much like your Google map does, He doesn't give you the final destination. He just showed them the next step. He gave them a pillar, one step at a time. This is your next step. This is where you go next. So think about it much like a nightlight. It doesn't turn the moonlight or the midnight into noon. It doesn't illuminate the whole room. It gives you just enough light to see your next step so you can get to the bathroom safely. Doesn't turn it bright enough it's going to blind you in the middle of the night. I tease that John and I have hit that next level. And if this is you, you don't have to admit it. I'm just saying we have hit the next level in our age. That when we bought our next bed, when we bought our latest bed and mattress, it is one that raises the head, raises the feet, and it has a nice little button that will illuminate under the bed so that I can hit a button next to me on the remote that will illuminate so that it will light up so I can see where I'm going to the bathroom at night. Because I have a tendency to hit the footboard on the way to the bed or the cedar chest at the end of the bed, and John has a tendency to be a smart aleck and tell me to apologize to the furniture. And I'm not very kind when I wake up in the middle of the night and tell him to stop talking. So we now can illuminate the floor so that I know where I'm going at night, but it's not bright enough that hopefully I can get back to sleep when I get back to bed. Because I've hit that age where I have to go to the bathroom a couple times every night. and would like to get back to sleep so I get a reasonable amount of sleep every night. And so I really like that they make features like that at night because I still like it dark when I sleep. So I don't really want a night light on all night long. I want something I can turn off and on, but not the whole bedroom being lit up. And that's a lot of times how God works. He just wants to light the next step for you, not the whole room or the whole house or the whole map, just the next step. And he wants you to be faithful to take that next step. I don't know where this next journey is going to completely take me, but I'm taking the next faithful step, and I have accepted a new job. And that job is here in Des Moines. And so I will be making the journey to Des Moines 4 days a week. And so we don't know where that will lead us, but we're taking that next step. That's where we're going to head for us and our family, is dropping from a 60-hour-a-week job to a 32-hour-a-week job, which sounds a lot more manageable for my ministry and for my family and my health. And we'll see where God leads that. Sanctification happens through that daily obedience. When we can allow margin in our life to be faithful and to trust in that next step. Because when we fill our life so much with busyness of life, we don't leave room for Jesus. And when we don't leave enough room for Jesus and rest and what he says are priorities, which are God, family, and then career, it's really hard to keep it in that order. And it's really hard to keep that relationship with Christ open and that communication to hear from him if we're not leaving margin. And my forever and your forever is more important than anything else. And God will be faithful when I am faithful and when you are faithful. So one yes at a time is all we need to be concerned with. One yes, one step, and one faithful day at a time. And the in-between is where our identity is formed. Israel was no longer in Egypt. They exited that. But they weren't yet in the promised land. They were wandering in the wilderness. But it wasn't wasted time. It was a sacred place and space where they learned. Because God knew that they were not ready for the promised land. If he took them in that straight line from Egypt to the promised land, do you think they would have appreciated it? And I think sometimes of the spoiled generation that we sometimes are as Americans. And do we appreciate all that we have? Or is that why we maybe aren't so reliant on the God that we need in our life? Because we don't feel like we need him. Because when they were wandering in the wilderness, they had to learn to trust God for their daily bread. They had to learn to follow his voice and to worship him alone. Some of you may feel stuck in the in-between. And I've been there. But you're not stuck. You're being shaped. God says you're not ready for the next promised land. He's still shaping you. There's something he's wanting you to learn and to grasp and to grow into. There's a moment on a long bridge, if you've ever been on a really long bridge, and there's one, and I cannot think for the life of me what it is, where it's this really long bridge as you go over it, and there's a point as you're going over it that you cannot see anything behind you or in front of you but kind of water. You don't see the land on either side. You just see water. For those of you that scares, I'm sorry. I have a best friend that still freaks her out to drive across the dam there in Pella. When we go on motorcycle rides, it still freaks her out to drive that. But you're not where you started, but you're not yet where you're going. But there's really no option but to keep going. You can't really turn around. It's too narrow. There's only one lane going each direction, and you have to keep going. This is the in-between where God wants you to rely on him. There is, in the in-between, there's no evidence that God failed. It's proof that he carried you somewhere new. And I can look back on many times in my life where I was at a stage of in-between. And it's much like, I use this analogy in our Blue Christmas service of the footprints in the sand. And when a person looks back and they only see one footprint, and they initially think that it's because they were walking alone. But it's not. It's when God carried you. He never leaves you. He's right there all along, always. Just like with the people wandering, he is there. He is the pillar. He's the clouds, or he's the fire lighting the night. He is always with you. Whether he's walking beside you, holding your hand, or he's carrying you, he's there. And when you look back on your life, I can guarantee you that you will see a time when he probably carried you. And you'll see other times where he's holding your hand, walking beside you. Don't rush what God is using to reshape you. Psalm 23, one of the most famous passages besides John 3:16, is that even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The valleys are transitional spaces, not permanent residence. I'll say that again. Valleys are transitional spaces, not permanent residence. God does not waste seasons in your life. He does not waste seasons in your life. Even when you make wrong decisions that take you away from God, he will use them to further his kingdom. He will use them to transform you for his kingdom. What feels slow may be sacred. What feels unclear may be deeply formative. Some of you are here today, in the room or online, and you're in transition, waiting for clarity, grieving what's ended, nervous about what's next. I understand. I'm grieving the leaving of my current job and the relationships that I have with people and patients that I know that have been there that I've gotten to know. But I know that they're in good hands, and God will provide a new leader to lead them. I'm nervous about what's next and the new relationships to come and the transitions that come with a new job and a new career and new relationships and a new healthcare system. But God is whispering all the time, you don't need the whole plan. You need my presence for the next step. You don't need the whole plan. You need my presence for the next step. God's whispering the same thing to you right now. You don't need the whole plan for whatever it is that you're in transition for. Whether it's in your finances, your job, your relationship, your faith. Doesn't matter where you are and what you're dealing with. You just need God's presence. And if you don't have a relationship with God today, all you have to do is ask for Him to come into your life and be a presence. He's not forceful. He's not overwhelming and overbearing. He just wants to reside in your heart. And as you're ready for each next step, He's right there, holding your hand, ready to take the next step in the journey with you. Let's pray.